I do on time.
You snuck. All right, Bannock County Commissioners are in session Tuesday, December 23rd. Happy holidays to everyone, and we get to start off this morning with Chantel and Indigent Business.
Yes,
Chantel.
thank you. The first case that I have for you today is case number 20260007. It's an application for cremation expenses through Manning Wheatley Funeral Home in the amount of $1,500. The recommendation is a denial pursuant to Idaho Code 313403. Bannock County does not appear to be the last resource for payment of that final expense. Case number 20260009. It's an application for cremation expenses through Wilkes Funeral Home in the amount of $1,500. The recommendation is a denial pursuant to Idaho Code 313403. Bannock County does not appear to be the last resource for payment of that final expense. And the last application that I have for you is case number 20260008. It's an application for cremation expenses through Cornelison Funeral Home in the amount of $1,500. The recommendation is an approval of this application. The deceased is 87 years old, is a Bannock County resident, was not a veteran, does meet all Idaho Code criteria to be eligible for assistance, and there is no responsible party available for repayment of this request at this time.
Any questions on any of those?
No.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we deny case 20260007 and 20260009 and approve case 20260008.
Would you authorize signature?
And authorize signature on the release of liens.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. And then I would make a motion that we enter into the Board of Ambulance District. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chief, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Ryan O'Hearn with the Bannock County Ambulance District, and I'm here this morning with Tyson Koster. I'll let him kind of introduce himself and talk about an ambulance standby, and then I'll fill you in with some information and some ways that we might approach that.
Tyson Koster, Hot Springs Chamber. Here before you just asked for a fee waiver for ambulance coverage for February 7th, 2026. That'll be the weekend of the fire and ice event there in Lava. So last year I was late. I took this over last year and I was late getting the fee waiver in, so I didn't do it last year, but this year I did apply for it. So I think everyone's kind of familiar with the event. It's probably one of the biggest winter events in Bannock County, let alone South County. The projection was we bring in about $150,000 in revenue to the area in the 2 days of the event. So we're projecting about 5,000 people on Saturday. So.
Okay. How busy is it, Chief?
Well, and I apologize, I was just talking with Tyson before this, and I should have looked back historically at what we did last year, or even the year before. I think you said 2 years ago they had quite a bit of call volume, yeah. And at times we had multiple ambulances down there. And that's where I thought I would just kind of talk a little bit about the request and some of the ways that we handle ambulance standby in South County, just real quick. He submitted an ambulance standby request for this, which is we do that generally for rodeos, we do it for the fair, we do it for other events. But then there's also another way that we handle surge capacity in South County, particularly in Lava, and that is through just staffing an additional ambulance on that day that we pre-position in Lava, and we do that on the 4th of July. And so we could consider whether this rises to that level as a community-wide event that we're anticipating a high call volume, and by pre-positioning that unit down in South County, we are decreasing call volume or response time. Obviously, we would ensure that the lab ambulance is in service as well. And then it also alleviates some of the pressure from drawing a lot of resources down there. We still may end up sending multiple resources, we send them wherever in the system they're needed. But that's something we could consider as well. And that would be at your discretion whether you wanted to treat this as something that we treat like the 4th of July and just pre-position a unit down there, or whether you feel it's more of a special event that's necessitating additional coverage, that we would charge an ambulance standby fee and then consider a fee waiver. I did submit just an estimate of what our hard costs are on this. During this time of year, we will likely have staffing to put people on an ambulance down there. We would use one person for overtime, so our hard costs that we're estimating is about $780.
So what's the difference in the standby cost then and the
So the difference,
4th of July?
the estimated, I'm sorry, I don't think I understood your question.
Well, you said on the 4th of July, you actually put another ambulance down there. So what's the cost difference between a standby and?
It would be about the same. We would have probably a hard cost to the district of $780 worth of overtime for that standby, that we would either absorb within our district budget through overtime, or if we treat it as an ambulance standby, we could potentially try to recoup some of that cost.
So the total cost would be the $2,040?
Correct. That's our standby rate. It's been $170 per hour for a number of years, and that's to staff 2 personnel, fuel, operating supplies, and wear and tear on the vehicle.
Okay. And then the minus the 780 is overtime? So the total
Yep, that would
request
be
is
the hard cost, and that leaves a difference of about $1,260 that you could consider whether to waive that or whether to waive a portion, or.
Okay. Commissioner?
I wrestled with this thing forever last night, trying to figure out, because whatever we do here relates to other functions. I guess my question of it is, would there be a possibility to position that ambulance down in McCammon, almost like a dry run thing? Because if you did need an ambulance somewhere else, I just wondered if there was an option to actually position one as if we're trying to
Sure.
explore that and position it in there where they have, you know,
Yep, that would
right there,
absolutely.
because it is going to cut your close. But if there is a multiple call another direction, you could even come back or whatever. I'm just curious, how
is an
difficult would
option.
that be to make that conversation and try that down there?
Yeah, we could absolutely do that. That would be very easy.
So I guess the other thing that I wrestle with, and I know it brings a lot of revenue up in there, is there any kind of a participation fee that we could actually charge an entity to say, okay, if our cost is $1,200, could we waive half of that and the chamber or somebody else would? These are just questions I haven't. Is there a way that we could actually help the people who organize these kind of events? We're almost releasing them from any responsibilities to the extra coverage, which could jeopardize another call or two somewhere else in the county. I think that's what I worry about. So I don't know, Tyson, you want to address that?
So we do charge so throughout the day, so we'll start Friday night, and we're not asking for coverage Friday night, and then we do charge for each event as a chamber.
Charge.
Entry to those
Okay,
events.
so there are some fees that.
But most of those fees, so the chamber, we try to make just enough money as an organization to get next year's event up and running. Like, we don't profit very much. Most of all that is just pass-through money. Friday night we have a concert, so most of that money we charge for the concert goes to the band. So we pass through a majority, like fire dancers, Saturday night, that's the biggest draw, Saturday night. And then we try to make enough to cover the fireworks, so we'll shoot up about $30,000 with the fireworks this year. So we try to cover the cost, and the chamber doesn't profit much from the event at all.
And the other question I would have is, here again, we're talking about levied money from Bannock County residents. I'm just curious, what percentage of the people who come up there would you anticipate were our Bannock County?
It's actually surprising. We get a lot of Pocatello traffic down there on that Saturday, but it is, I mean, we get traffic from everywhere. Last year I ran an event, and I ended up talking to a lady, and she flew in from Maine just for the event. So
To me, that's always if we're taking money from Bannock County residents to help pay for the ambulance, are we subsidizing other events or whatever? And I'm just,
Along that line,
Yeah.
I go back to like our 4th of July. We pay full fee for our 4th of July event, I believe. And also the concerts that we have up there, we pay full
Yeah.
fee. So I struggle with waiving it for you, but then we end up, for our 4th of July, which is a free event for everybody, that we end up paying full fee for. So I struggle with that, but I want to support the event because it is a great event, brings a lot of people in. So what's the appropriate?
But
way?
it goes further than that because McCammon Rodeo comes, and this is a community event by the chamber where McCammon is a rodeo committee that isn't really the city's. You know, so to me, that's a little bit different, supporting a chamber compared to.
and that's what I was similar with these concerts, that we've actually had to get additional liability coverage. The county had to pay because of the venue that people come in, possible damage or whatever. And that's why I was toying with this thing about half the night, trying to figure out what's fair to Lava, to the rodeos, to the concerts.
Yeah, that's a word.
I'm still searching for that answer.
Fair. We actually, as we started planning last year, this come about because of the call volume from the previous years. So 2 years, we ended up with two ambulances down there. We had a broken leg and a knocked out person at the same exact time while Lava was already on a call. So we ended up with a ton of Pocatello staff down there, and they ended up back down several times. So as we were talking through the staff of the day of the event, they're like, we really should treat this like the 4th of July and just get a standby ambulance down there because it's actually more time consuming for them. That year was with the call volume on.
So our real expense is the hard cost for the overtime, that's $780, right?
Correct.
See, that's what I would kind of be willing
That's where I'm at
to
myself,
charge.
is
If we just charge
we
the
cover the hard
$780 for
cost.
this.
Well, and I agree with that same thing, but I would love to test this situation out and put the ambulance actually in Lava, because there's a good chance that they could respond and maybe not even transport, which we have a lot of those kind of
I'll bet.
things. We show up there, we treat it, and people say, no, we're just gonna get in our own car and go home. But it would sure be easier than trying to come clear from Pocatello. And yet you still could use that ambulance somewhere else in Bannock County if we needed to. I guess that's what I'm wondering, whether.
I
we
actually
could do
told Chief that when I got here. I thought about that driving in because I've timed it with everything that's going on. I timed it the other day just out of curiosity because of our facilities. And from the station to both of our facilities in town, like you could be there in 12 minutes running the speed limit. So our
Did you run the
volunteers-
speed limit just to test that?
I did.
Okay.
So,
Well, I would move that we just charge the $780 for our hard costs and then accept the fee waiver for the rest of it.
So-
Any discussion on that?
So who's paying the cost? So the event
Yeah.
organizer or whatever, and I think that's only fair that we can show that
Yeah,
if you do have an event,
and I think that's
there could
more,
be some
I mean,
costs
the
there.
chamber would be happy with that, is
Okay.
paying the hard cost and we get a
Commissioner
little
Wilson,
help
any
and it helps us on the.
Further thoughts?
No, I think that what we're doing here is gonna trickle down to other events, so we need to let people know that that's kind of way. we're
Well,
moving.
and I think that's consistent, because like up at the event center, a lot of times, or anywhere, we say, what is our cost over and above things like for cleaning up and stuff like that. We try to make sure those costs are covered, so I think this is consistent with some of the things we've done in the past. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Tyson. I'm going to move over to the computer here, and I've got a hopefully brief presentation for you. This will be kind of our quarterly update, and today, if I can get this queued up, I wanted to kind of focus on some of the South County issues that we've been discussing recently. And I thought I would start where I left off in July during our last presentation. This is, I think, one of the slides that we ended with, or the summary of the South County, and this still holds true today. We still are at about that call volume. We average 1 to 2 calls per day in the South County area. We're at 450 calls, incidents. I should be more specific, incidents in South County year to date to mid-November. We've had 450, so it's a little more than one per day. Overlapping call right now is trending at about 9%. Busiest period is still during the day, and we're still looking at out-of-service times as one of our challenges. And before I start, I just wanted to kind of premise all this by saying we really appreciate our volunteers and recognize the work that they put in. As I pulled up here today, Downey Ambulance was on a call down there with a crew that has been with us for a very long time, and we recognize their commitment and all the work that they do put in. I know that it is a challenge to manage full-time jobs and family life. One of the challenges that we continue to see in South County is really the biggest challenge that is kind of necessitating action, and we can kind of discuss what that looks like, has been the out-of-service times. And it varies by unit. So Downey seems to be the most in service at about 84% of the time. Lava has dropped, and all three services down there, units, have trended downward over the last 5 years. During that time, we have made some attempts to bolster the EMT numbers. We did a class in 2023, and we have, I think, about 8 people that are still with our service that came out of that class. The 25 people started the class, and we have 8 people operating as an EMT that were part of that class. And then we continue to explore. We get seats in ISU's EMT class every year, and we explore other opportunities to train EMTs. We're collaborating right now with Caribou County and have, I believe, 2 students in that class. So we're always looking for opportunities to continue to train EMTs. This just shows that trend that I talked about going back to fiscal year 19, trending a little bit downwards. We did have a spike in 2024 where that seemed to increase in service after that class, and we do have a lot of dedicated volunteers that were part of that class, but we continue to kind of trend downward a little bit. This kind of just illustrates some of the benefits of positioning an ALS ambulance in McCammon. Right now, an ALS ambulance coming from Pocatello has a response time of about 20 minutes to Income, 38 minutes to Lava, and 47 minutes to Downey. We modeled that ALS, that McCammon station, the new station, and it cut the time to Income by about 3 minutes. We see a time savings to Lava of about 26 minutes and to Downey of about 25 minutes by positioning that down there. So it greatly decreases response time, particularly to Downey.
And I would like to point out that Tyson's estimate was pretty close to yours.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
So good job, Tyson.
So there's some verification of our numbers. This number here shows we talk about response times, and that includes call processing time, the amount of time it takes someone, whether it's career or volunteer, to receive the notification and get on the unit and begin responding. So in a career station, that happens within a few minutes. In a volunteer station, it's somewhat longer, because one of the benefits of volunteering is that you can be on standby and still be at your house or at your work. You get notified of an incident, you respond to the station, and that's where you go in service to the call, and your travel time begins. And so the turnout time is different for volunteers versus career, but that's because the volunteers need to travel to the station. So in Income, they are able to be on scene from the time of notification 90% of the time within 18 minutes, and there is a body of incidents below that, that's 90%. So you could look at maybe what the average is, and in Income, that's 12 to 18 minutes. I tried to just take kind of the the meat of the response, so that we're not artificially holding them to this 90th percentile standard, because in some cases it is faster for a volunteer unit, particularly in Downey, to get to a call. But you see in Lava, they're at 18 to 27 minutes, and in Downey they're at, 27 minutes is the 90th percentile. The majority is 18 to 27, and Downey is fairly similar. One of the concerns that has been brought up during this discussion is just that Downey is a ways out there, and it is true that the Downey ambulance will be faster at that 15 to 27 minutes, even than a unit responding from McCammon, because we still have about 20 miles of distance to make up. And so we'll be arriving on scene to that 90th percentile about the same time as that Downey unit, but I do concede that we have responders that live in the Downey town site, and when they respond from their house to the station and they go to Whispering Pines, for example, which is the assisted living center there, they are very fast to there, and they are faster than the McCammon station would be. And so I just want to acknowledge that there are some things that have been brought up that are accurate. And in addition, it is a benefit to have those additional responders on scene even when an ALS unit arrives. So there is value to the volunteer system. I think there's been a perception that maybe we're minimizing that value, but I want to recognize that they do contribute. And I apologize, one of the slides that didn't make it into this final draft is what we call concurrency, and that's another concern that's been brought up, is the number of times that we have multiple calls in South County. As I maybe mentioned earlier, that's about 9% of the time. It varies by zone. Lava is our busiest zone that has the most calls, the most incidents. I need to stop saying calls. And so their call concurrency is about 6%. So 6% of the time when there's a call in Lava, you have the potential for a second call. And that number, 6%, what that means over the course of a year is 12 calls. In Downey, it's less. It's about 2%, which is about 4 calls. And then in Income, you deal with 1%, which is 1 to 2 calls for that call concurrency, where you run the risk of having one unit on a call and a second unit. And I like to also, I know we're really focused on South County, but I wanted to give you an idea system-wide of what that looks like. And in all of Bannock County, 35% of the time, we have 2+ calls. And I'm happy to distill this into a chart and send it to you. I apologize, I did have a slide. 15% of the time, or about 1,200 calls, we have 3 or more. 4%, we have 4+, 1%, 5+, and we have 20 incidents year to date where we had 6 or more calls in the system at one time. So we are running a busy system in the county, and I know we're talking a lot about South County here, but there is a relationship to the call volume in the entire county. And I don't think I started with this, but when you look at call distribution throughout the system, we see about 20% of our call volume in Chubbuck and North Bannock County, and 20% of roughly 9,500 calls, or 10,000, so about 2,000 calls, or somewhere in that, a little less in Chubbuck, North Bannock County. 75% of calls in the city of Pocatello city limits, and then 5% of calls south of Pocatello in South County. So just to give you that call distribution. To give you an idea of what, I know one of the things we're talking about right now is the potential to fully staff in McCammon. And for 6 personnel for wages and benefits, that's about $633,000. Currently, we budget for our South County system about $140,000. We executed $134,000 last year, and that is down on average over the last 5 years. About 5 years ago, we had authorized South County responders to run with 3 personnel on the ambulance, and so we had increased the South County staffing to about $300,000. But we found that even though it's beneficial for them to have 3 on the ambulance, they just couldn't staff that, and so that they ended up running with 2 anyway. And so over time, we've kind of adjusted that South County budget to reflect what we're executing. So we're trying to be responsible and not ask for more money than we think we need to execute the system. But I just wanted to give you an idea of where that funding has trended. This year, we did ask for some additional funding, which the commission granted, and some of the funding streams that we're looking at to potentially fund this expansion would be our ambulance fees, which we increased this year after we examined our historical performance. And then we also have a new funding stream that we're very excited about, but we haven't seen materialize yet. We're expecting our first reconciliation in May of 2026 on that. And I will say that even though our initial estimates came in somewhat conservative, after we submitted our packet, the estimate, even though it hasn't been approved and gone through auditing yet, was much more favorable to the district. And so we're hopeful that we will receive more than we anticipated, but we're still, again, trying to be very conservative on that estimate. And then the other portion that we would potentially be able to fund this is through the reallocation of existing funds. We do have some money in our overtime account that in the last year we've stopped doing interfacility transfers. That used to be something that did generate revenue that went into that affected our performance on our fee revenue, but it also had some overtime expenditures with that. As that has gone away, there's a private ambulance company in town that now performs that service for Portneuf, and we used to do about 125 of those a year. And so that revenue stream is gone, but that expense is also gone, and so we could reallocate some of that funding within our budget to address this issue. As we move forward, we have engaged some stakeholders, and that is some of our South County volunteer coordinators, as well as our medical director, and some other folks to be on a committee to begin meeting after the first of the year to kind of discuss ways that we might be able to look at it differently or address this issue. And so we're looking forward to that. And then I guess after that, our intention is to follow up with you potentially with some ideas that come out of that work group with some paths forward and some options to consider. And probably some more firm numbers on budgeting and how we would finance this and what it would cost. I know that these numbers today are pretty soft and pretty high level, but we would want to drill down and give you a better understanding of the funding.
Cool.
Any questions?
Ken's got
I have
a bunch
some,
over here.
and you answered some, and I appreciate the effort. In fact, I really enjoyed coming and visiting with you and actually walking in and seeing that monitor in there that showed all the calls, and it just almost was to see the out of service. All 3 of those were out of service at the time I was there, which scares me to no end. And I appreciate you showed me those numbers and the budget and everything else. It was interesting that yesterday I had one of the, I'm not going to put it by name, but I visited with one of the volunteers yesterday from the Downey area about their concerns, about our concerns. So I really do, I'm looking forward to that work group. And I think we really do need to invite, okay, give them the numbers, what's your solution to it? And I think if they see what's going on there, we need to invite those into that. Maybe they've got some solutions, I don't know. And the funding streams, I noticed that you had those. So is there any, with rural ambulances, is there any outside funding that we could apply for that help, that we haven't already engaged? I don't know.
There have been some discussions in the legislature the last 2 years, and they have discussed a funding matrix that I know the rough details, and it'll all, if it goes through, it'll depend on what those final details are. But they they had projected a funding mechanism where the state would provide some additional funding to help bolster this rural response, because they're recognizing that it's an issue statewide. And that, the rough numbers that I heard could mean somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 of revenue, just based on draft legislation that's been presented, but it hasn't really gone anywhere into our system, into Bannock County.
And I think we need to exhaust all of that, whether we have to raise some fees, but if you raise the fees, you have to, I just think we need to look at that. And I guess the out-of-service thing and the time of the response, which you addressed, I really think that those numbers will help us make the difference. And in theory, I'm all for what we're trying to do in McCammon. I just think our timing, our involving the stakeholders need to be addressed in there. Because I think the more we push those numbers out there and say, do you want to risk your family member to waiting to come clear out of Pocatello because they're out of service? I just think the educational part of that has got to be there. And I think maybe there is a solution out there that we're not aware of. So I'm all for that effort and your timetable that you have there.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I'm a big believer that sometimes the people that are closest to the problem have the best insight into the solution, and that certainly is a lot of our South County volunteers. So we're looking forward to that, and we've got some ideas of where to reach out to potentially get some additional support. So,
can you tell me again this coordinator thing? Is there a turnover in there? Has that been stable?
It has been very stable. We did recently, just this year, have a long-term volunteer retire, and we have a new coordinator in Lava, actually. And with that, we kind of restructured a little bit. We consolidated down from, we used to have a coordinator and an assistant coordinator, and we tried to consolidate that into one person. And we're seeing how that works out. And we're trying to give them some more administrative report through some of our software platforms to assist them with scheduling and some other things that hopefully will address some of this out of service time as well.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner?
A few things. So we have ambulances in Lava, McCammon, or Lava, Ingham, and
Yeah,
Downey right now.
correct.
But we have volunteers in McCammon.
We have some volunteers that are part of the, I'll call it the Lava team,
Okay.
that live in McCammon. And so we have discussed, what does that look like? Because it's not very efficient if the two individuals that live in McCammon, and there's actually 4 or 5 that live in, about half of Lava's team lives in McCammon, the other half lives in Lava. It's not very efficient from a response standpoint to have the volunteers from McCammon driving to Lava to get the ambulance. If the call's in Lava, that's not so bad, but if it's back in McCammon, it's pretty bad. And so we have discussed the options of, we've discussed potentially moving Ingham ambulance to McCammon, either on a part-time basis when they're not able to staff it, that provides an avenue or a potential for McCammon Lava people to staff it, just to provide a better response. I think, I said this in the meeting, I'm one that likes to say that all options are on the table and we're looking for ideas, and that was one that was brought by our Lava team that said, hey, we have a lot of responders that live in McCammon, and it makes a lot of sense to maybe try to get an ambulance in that station, even if it's not fully staffed, that just, this team could do these days and this team could do these days, and it helps support that response. So that's one thing we're evaluating.
Okay. And before the ambulance come to Ingham had its own QRU unit.
Yes.
And so I think that smaller communities, we need to evaluate that, and see what QRU units would do in each one, and have the cities take a little bit of responsibility in that end. But looking at all the data, as we go further down, I would like us to explore all avenues to keep a part-time ambulance in Downey. I mean, if we need to come up with more financing or something, funding, but just with all the information and stuff, we're growing as a county. And so improving, going to McCammon, I'm 100% for, putting a full-time ambulance in there. But I'm also a little leery somehow about taking everything out of the little communities, just simply because we want to grow. And if I'm going to move into the area, I want to kind of know what the response times are and stuff on emergency services.
Yeah.
I think that, one, I'd like to see what we can do about keeping it in Downey, and two, maybe some of the months in Lava, you know, or what our options would be there too. Talk about what the financing would end up and how we could manage that, kind of like Commissioner Bullock said.
Because I think we only budgeted for the peak hour option.
That's
right?
correct.
Has that started yet?
It has not. No.
So,
In McCammon right now. Yeah, that's what our budget discussion was this year.
Correct.
yeah, and it scares me of, you know, basically spending most of my life down there. And we just are having a darn of a time to get qualified people to volunteer. Most of them are all working, they're somewhere else, their response times. And I asked my wife, I said, if you had a major heart attack, how long would you want me to wait, you know, for a response to come? Because we don't always get the choice. And what scares me is if they are out of service at any location in there, 40 minutes is a long time to wait for an ambulance. If your life, in fact, most people, I can tell you, they'd rather throw their, I don't want to use the word casualty, throw the person who's in front, they'll throw them in a car and run to Pocatello instead of waiting for an ambulance. And I'm not saying that is the best option either. But if you're sitting there waiting for 40 minutes, you can be to the emergency room in 20 from McCammon or from Ingham, even closer than that. And so there's a trade-off here. What's it worth to you if that's you that's having that major heart attack or injury, a car accident or whatever? And that's the other thing. Hawkins Basin, where do they fit in? I mean, we've got people that live all over the county, not just in the city of Downey.
Right.
We have people that live up Cottonwood. We have people that live up Dempsey. A county that is our responsibility, and that scares me, that the out of service and the time it is to get there. We got to figure something out, maybe with the volunteers. If they could get there quicker than we am, at least stabilize or get on the radio, I think they may have some answers for us.
I agree, and I will just comment briefly that this isn't a circumstance that's unique to Bannock County. I mean, I've talked with providers around the state, chiefs in volunteer fire and EMS districts that are struggling to recruit and retain volunteers just with the changing economic times. I don't fully understand what's driving it, but I know that around the state and throughout the nation, all you got to do is Google volunteer issues, and you'll see that it is a systemic issue.
Couple questions. What percentage of our ambulance resources go to South County?
From a budget standpoint,
Yeah.
well, I don't know what the percentage is, but we budget about $150,000 to operate the South County system, and you compare that to our total county-wide budget to run the entire ambulance district is $4.7 million for FY26. So it's a pretty small portion.
Okay, and then if we made this change, it would be a significant impact then. From a
Yeah,
financial
then
standpoint.
you would have basically 25% of your staffed ambulances, 1 out of 4. And so roughly 25% of that personnel cost. There are some other personnel costs associated with administration, with billing. We run our own billing office. So it's not just a cut and dried 25%, but taking this step certainly would allocate a much greater portion of the budget and resources to South County.
And our levy is pretty much at capacity, correct?
It is.
Okay. Okay. So if we look at the system as a whole, how does this impact, if we put the ambulance in McCam, as we talked about, how does that impact the system as a whole?
That's a great question. I've got some numbers here. We have about 800 responses to South County, and so we have incidents, 454, and then responses is the number of units we send to those incidents, and that number is 800, so it's almost twice. And so that's one of the things, even though we're seeing the largest percentage increase of our call volume is probably in Chubbuck and North right now. And that's just due to a lot of the growth that's happened there. I think I went over some of those numbers in July with you. But we recognize that we're still serving that call volume at a pretty good rate. And by having a unit, and we can't overcome the time it takes to get to South County as easily. And so right now we're focusing on allocating resources to South County. What that does is it reduces that 800 number and the impact to the North County system to where it takes about probably maybe 10% of the call volume. Or I hesitate to even give it a percentage because I haven't figured that out, but it's going to take some pressure off of sending a unit from north to south. And we talked about how much call overlap we have countywide, and it certainly happens more in the northern areas. And so by not sending those units and having all that time on the road going south, it will take a little bit of pressure off the north system. And we are, just like we're kind of challenging conventional wisdom with how we're deploying resources in South County, we're doing that same thing in North County. And I want you to know that we're concerned with providing services to the entire county. And even though I'm the fire chief of Pocatello, my focus is not on providing ambulance services solely to the city of Pocatello. It's to provide services to the entire county.
Do you remember what your transport rates are for the various parts of the county?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but that's something I can easily.
If I remember from the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, your transport rate in the Pocatello area was around 60% of the time, and in South County it was 45% of the time?
I do recall that when we presented that previously, it was less in South County.
Okay, so that transport rate means we go visit a site, and then we either haul somebody or don't haul somebody, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then...
And if we don't charge somebody, then it's, if we don't transport somebody, then there's no charge.
Correct. And then again, you take a resource offline for a while for whatever reason. Can you tell me what Dr. Sandy's role is?
So Dr. Sandy is our medical director. So licensed EMS agencies in the state have to have basically a physician sponsor that acts as their medical director. He provides that for the county under contract. And so we use his license. He also is involved in delivering education, making recommendations or advising. He, in the past, has sat on our dispatch steering committee, so talking about how we process calls and triage them to identify severity to ensure that we're sending the right resources.
Okay.
Those are some of the things that he does.
And how involved, do you meet with him on a monthly basis, bi-monthly? How often?
We probably need to visit that and establish and close the loop on our meetings. We've kind of gotten to the point, or we've gotten out of the habit of meeting regularly, and that's as much my fault as it is anybody else's.
Okay, any other questions?
I just want to clarify, because I feel like I'm missing something. So we're completely jumping what we budgeted for and not doing the peak hours? We're just going straight to full-time in McCammon?
That is a thought, and that's not a foregone conclusion. It doesn't have to be. In fact, when we bring back, but one of the things that kind of got this started was we were seeing some out-of-service times this fall, and I was concerned that peak hours was not going to adequately address what we were seeing from a service standpoint. And so we kind of sharpened our pencil and said, well, could we make full-time work within the existing budget. And we started kind of brainstorming and saying, well, if this was the goal, how would we make it work? Really, the only way that it works in the existing budget is doing away with the volunteer system. And so we presented that as an option. Obviously, there's some emotion involved in that, and so we're going to kind of redouble our efforts. But I wouldn't say necessarily that we're totally skipping, but I had proposed trying to accelerate the solution within the appropriated budget.
When talking about meetings, I mean, with Dr. Sandy, I would appreciate if the commission was more involved as a whole
Absolutely.
in some of these discussions, so that we,
Yeah, I will make it a note to revisit with you in late January or early February to keep you updated with the discussions that the work group's having.
And can I request, as the work group makes progress, that if you guys decide to make that a full-time position, that could have financial impact for next fiscal year that we may or may not have funding for.
And
So if I
that,
could be looped in it, or the clerk at some point, because
Yeah.
that might, I mean, that's like hiring a higher wage right now, but then not having that money next year to cover it.
yeah, understood, and that's at the forefront of our mind, as we know that even though we think we could potentially accelerate this now, we're worried about the FY '27 ask, and so we don't want to overshoot that.
Right now, I'd love to see, as part of this work group, include the two new mayors. Because it's definitely going to affect, I mean, these decisions going down the road, especially North Pocatello or the North Bannock County. There may be a conversation that we have talked about, even relocating one of your ambulances to make that easier. And it might be a good time to reach out to Mayor Chubbuck and the Mayor of Pocatello, because it affects you, because you actually report to them as well too. So I think maybe it's time to include some of those stakeholders in this discussion as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. And with that, I would move that we exit the Board of Ambulance. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Scott. Or actually Tyson's, sorry. Tyson and Scott.
Yeah, 2 times.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here in a role, I guess, as a support role for this. Last year, Tyson came in and asked if he could borrow the bleachers from Downey for the Fire and Ice Festival. We're looking to do the same thing again. I think last year you guys mitigated some of the costs by doing the transport yourselves,
Yep.
right? Which, aside from, I guess, any wear and tear that could come from the use of the bleachers, which I'm not sure that it's even it's hard to quantify what that wear and tear would look like, but the real cost for us is just hauling them back and forth. So, the request is the same as last year, right?
Yeah,
I can't
so
remember the exact fee you paid.
Last year, we granted one set, so the $600, and then we utilized all 3 sets. And members of the chamber and my staff went and got them, set them up, took them down, took them back. So I don't think there was much of an impact to the fair member staff at all. So,
Okay. Commissioners?
and just it worked great last year for what the change we made. So we use them for the fire dancers. So.
No, I think that we have them in the county, and there's some of these events, I mean, we was in Aramo a week or 2 ago with them, and we might as well utilize them instead of just sitting underneath the cover.
Commissioner?
My only concern is, again, if something were to happen in the transport, then, you know, if you're the one going and getting them,
So we did check on that last year, and I think it provided Chrissy with our, we have to get a event policy,
okay.
and they were covered under that, so I can send that.
Okay.
We
So
sent that
if
certificate
there was some
last year.
damage, and it isn't necessary you do it willfully, but somebody could run into the back of you, I would love to see you guys accept that responsibility.
Yeah, and I can
to,
provide that insurance
return-
certificate again this year. Just like
You
we
know,
did
return
last
them in the same order as you got them. That's my only concern. I think it's a great deal.
Okay, I would entertain a motion then.
with that, I'll make that motion that we go ahead and authorize Tyson and Lava
Hot Springs Chamber.
to
Tyson's not gonna
put
bother.
Tyson's name on it, then you can get him there in 12 minutes, right?
Not
So,
from down here, I can't.
yeah, authorize you guys to go ahead and use those bleachers.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, have a
Do
good,
the insurance.
Just clarify the insurance with, or with contract, send it to me.
Okay. Thank you.
have a good event.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Don't burn the city down.
Yeah, we'll try not to. Merry Christmas, all.
Thanks.
You too. Merry Christmas.
Shanda.
This squirrel on Jeff's back is killing me. I just can't stop.
What squirrel? Squirrel?
It's just killing me. Just keep looking over and
I'm
seeing
waiting
that.
for a light bulb to
Dying.
come on, light bulb to come on above his head. Light bulb.
Oh my gosh.
Good morning, Commissioner. Shanda Crystal, Chief Procurement Officer, and I'd asked
Dan Kendall, Facilities Director.
to join you today for my first item before the board is that potential signatures we're requesting on 2 change orders with Headwaters Construction. This is the company that did the YDC project for us, and as we are wrapping that up, these last 2 change orders do just that, but I did want to go over them with you. That first one, change order number 12, what it does is it clears out, originally when we did the contract with Headwaters, we also authorized $245,000 of contingency funds that would be available to the project. They added that funds to their project in their accounting system. So what this does is clears that unused contingency out of there. So this first one is the invoices that the county paid directly. We utilize that contingency to do like Idaho Power, furniture, engineering, things like that. And so then this first one, it clears out the portion that Bannock County paid directly. It was out of those contingency funds. And then the second one clears out the remainder of the contingency that we didn't use, the unused contingency. And then also, I am pleased to report that any of the unused original contracts got returned. Those are items, the general conditions for $27,000, right? Surveying direct at $10,000. Those are all ones that we didn't utilize completely with Headwaters. So that was really fun to see at the end of the project that we did have quite a few change orders with Headwaters as the project got going, right? Unknown things that we didn't know, tanks that were there, things like that that we adjusted and changed throughout the project. On those 11 change orders that we've had prior to this, they total $41,600 and some change on that one. And then they're returning to us of unused original contract, $47,700 and change. So actually, from the original contract price with Headwaters, we saved just over $6,000 from their portion of it. That does not include, right, the portion that I just talked about that the county paid directly, but I've really enjoyed the process of this project with Headwaters, and did have down here just in case you guys had any other questions or things as we, these 2 final change orders, if approved by the commission, would wrap up the project. They would submit their final invoice for auditing to code, and we would release retainage. Those would be the next steps.
Well, I'm just excited to close another chapter in these monies and see just exactly where we're at. But thank you, and for Headwaters to be giving money back. I mean, it's almost unheard of.
Yeah, well done.
And a lot of that is because we've done our due diligence. Dan, I'm looking right at you, and Shanda as well, as we did our due diligence in making sure everything was thought about. That doesn't happen by chance, that we come that close. Most projects I've ever been in has always got an override. They've always got more out of it, so thank you, both of you.
Project.
Okay. With that, I would accept a motion on change order 12 and change order 13.
I'd make a motion that we go ahead and approve the change orders for Headwaters 12 and 13.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Perfect. Then next, then in a couple of weeks, then you'll see before you the final invoice and then releasing that retainage and closing out the project. And we've got another one off the books. The second item I have before the board is a procurement update today. If you want to start at the top of the list there on the dashboard, replacing the courthouse parking lot. We are in the middle of the draft stage of that ITV, but we have opted to wait to publish till after the holidays. We wanted to make sure to just hit the widest possible audience we could, and just in case any of those contractors had people out of the office or anything like that, we're going to wait till probably mid-January, get everybody back in the office before we actually publish that and go live with it. But we do feel that that still give us plenty of time to get on a contractor's agenda, and then if winter shows up, right, then we'll be right spot on ready when spring finally hits. For the Road and Bridge small engine services, RFI, those are due today, and they're not sealed or they don't need to be publicly opened or anything like that. So anything we do receive, we'll just issue right back out to Road and Bridge, and as they're in the office, they'll be able to review and have any conversations that we need to have as we gather that information. Moving on to the Event Center, Master Planning Services, we did receive 5 RFQs on that. They are under evaluation at this time. And we do plan on having interviews within the first couple weeks of January with potential companies before we issue a recommendation back to the board on who we would like to award that project to. In regards to emergency management, the Lava Ranches Fuels Reduction Phase 2, we received 4 RFSs for that. They are all under evaluation, and we do anticipate a recommendation coming before the board in early January for that one also. They are able to do some winter work, so we are hoping to get them out just as quickly as that company will.
No snow out there yet.
Right. So, hold our breath, but right then we'll deem whether or not when they need to stop. Right, that project manager will be able to facilitate that. In regards to Road and Bridge Storage Building, we have issued addendum number 3. That moves the due date back into March. I just wanted to allow additional time for conversations to be had as far as the location of that building, to be able to solidify where we want to put it before we move forward with potential additional geotech surveys or anything like that. I just kicked it clear until March, so we have plenty of time, again, hopping over those holidays and being able to have those conversations before we make a decision.
And we did make a motion to hold them projects right now until we talked about some other land.
Okay.
So that is.
Okay, then this will align just right with that. Excellent. The last item I just wanted to make the commission aware of, as we continue to improve and redo our bids every year, we add a little bit of additional language and hopefully allows us to respond a little differently as projects roll out through the year. I do have a for instance, and that is regarding chip seal. We went out for bid in early spring of 2025 for that and was awarded to DePatco. I left language in there that Bannock County may order additional units as budget would allow within the calendar year 2025. And as this year is particularly odd in the fact that we have no snow and Road and Bridge is adjusting to Mother Nature and what will be allowed to do, Buddy reached out a couple weeks ago and wanted to know if he could still order chips off there. So right, we pull up the ITB and take a look at it. Indeed, we had language in there that would allow it for him. So he's identified funds and has put that order in. Oh, sorry. It also says that all terms and conditions and price of the bid shall apply to the additional units ordered. So then we did have to reach out to DePatco and just make sure that they were willing to honor that. They have now gotten back with Buddy that they're willing to hold all terms and conditions of that original bid that we ran in the spring. So he's put in order for additional units on that, and they'll run just as far as they can, again, until Mother Nature decides to switch gears on them, and then they'll put their road crew out plowing. But I thought that was a great opportunity for both Road and Bridge to be adaptive to what was put in front of them. And then as we improve and look at how we do the bids, give them that flexibility to be able to respond how their year rolls out. So we're excited for that change, and we'll look at going out to bid if needed. If Mother Nature holds off long enough, Buddy thinks they'll be able to complete what they needed to complete in their fiscal year 26 budget. So we're just going to touch base in February and kind of see how things played out and what they might need. If there's any questions, though, I'd be happy to answer.
Good. Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Clauser.
Krista Clauser, Comptroller. Couple items for you. The first is the annual Road and Bridge Street Report. This just breaks out the revenue and expenditures for LTAC and ITD. and then as soon as I have signature on this, I need to electronically submit it. It's due on the 31st. There's also a spot for the clerk to sign. Should be the front page.
Any questions on that report?
Nope.
Then I would move that we approve the report as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
Second item, I'm standing in on an underage alcohol grant. This is one of the mini grants that we get multiple, that the sheriff runs. It's just for them to beef up patrols, provides overtime for the deputies, and to try and keep some enforcement on that issue.
Scored 100 from the grant team, it looks like.
This is one of our easy grants. It does involve payroll, but we've got a pretty good system down on this one, just simply because we do so many of them.
Okay.
Been going around for a while.
Yeah, this is one of multiple.
I would then welcome,
Go ahead and make a
Motion.
motion that we put a signature on the underage alcohol grant.
we have a motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Is that the graduated from high school graduation night grant?
The last item I have for the board is the FY25 vessel report. Used to, we had to do the waterways report and also snowmobile. This year, it's just the waterways. So this provides beginning balance, the money coming in, the money spent. I was a little surprised. We got a big chunk of money at the end of the fiscal year that I had to accrue into September that we didn't know we were going to get. So that's why we received so much more than we had spent. But the money was spent up at the Event Center Wellness Complex. Scott put in more beach access. And so you can see that's where the revenue falls. And then because we do have money held back, that's page 2's description of how we intend to spend it.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on that?
Yeah, when I read through that, we had this discussion on water. Can these funds be utilized to purchase water to fill the
Reservoir.
reservoir?
I would have to look into that.
And
That's a good question.
we've had that discussion, and if we're gonna be buying water, I
I
just,
believe the code section is access, but I'd have to reread the code section, and then we could have Jonathan look at it. I know there was a change a few years ago. We thought it was non-motorized, and that changed a little bit. But we could have Jonathan look at the code section. I'm not sure we could purchase. It's an existing waterway, so maybe there's a gray area that we could do that, but I
I
can
don't know,
definitely
it
get,
just comes across my mind as I was.
It's worth
reading.
asking.
I can get with
We just
Jonathan
don't-
and look at it.
And thought, what the heck, might as well ask the question.
Good question.
So is this a use or lose?
Potentially.
Okay.
If they don't like the description on page 2 of how we're going to retain the funds, they could ask for it back. I think we'd have a valid argument that as the money came in all year, when I get a surplus in October for September, how do we spend that? So I think we'd have a valid argument of saying, hey, if you send the money to us more timely, then we could spend
Yeah.
it that way, but it's based on licenses purchased, so, that's kind of hard.
Value of perfect information. We didn't know those kind of numbers
Yeah.
until
Yeah, in
way
fact,
after we budgeted, yeah.
even on the expenditures, based on the revenue we've received in the past expenditures, I thought Scott had overspent budget, and then we turned around and got more revenue,
Yeah.
which we did end up overspending budget, but I didn't have time to open it because it came in too late. So we'll just use reserves.
Okay, any further questions on that? Then I would move that we approve the county vessel funding report as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next is approval of the jail report that we did on December 16th, our jail inspection. Any comments on the jail inspection?
I just, on the record, comment that they do a great job out there. From where that facility and how it smelled when we first started doing this and what it is now, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't see any prisoners. They were all in lockdown.
They were doing the cleaning,
Yeah,
from what I understand. I
it
mean,
was cleaning hour.
they was, yeah.
in their cells.
Yeah, we saw everybody but prisoners.
It was a good inspection. And the jail looks great, so.
I'll make the move, we go ahead and sign that jail inspection report.
Okay, we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With that, we're to the resolutions. We have Resolution 2025-89, which is the authorization of destruction of records, and Resolution -90, approving tax cancellation requests, which we spoke with the assessor earlier about that. Any comments or concerns on either of those resolutions? Then I would move that we approve Resolutions 89 and 90 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that takes us to the consent agenda. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the consent agenda?
I do have an invoice for the board. This is for the juvenile detention contribution. It did come in over budget. Usually I do a better job. This year I did not. We only had budgeted $975,000. The bill came in at just over $990,000. So I would request that we reallocate monies between, we'll just do bottom line, but if we can use potential litigation or grant match, just bottom line.
Okay.
The projections were just not even at the 990 mark when we did budget.
Okay. And Ernie, you had a question on the consent agenda?
Yeah, you had that one salary rate approval form. Did we need to talk about that?
If the board has questions on the SAR approval form, there is a claim within invoices. There was a reimbursement for $800 for the prosecutor's office. That item was not turned in correctly and should not be paid to Bannock County. So that will be voided and will come back on a future commission report when the documents are correct. And then on the SAR approval form, if you want to go into executive, we can talk about that. There is a demotion. On the demotion for the one employee, it needed to be made effective that date, so it's retroactive, but it's the next pay period that we're going to pull through. And then a line item did open on the 26th to be able to move that individual into. So it's kind of an exception. Usually we don't allow retroactive dates on SAR approval forms, but because it was a demotion, we had to. And that demotion followed all appropriate processes.
If it followed the process, and I'm okay with it then.
With that, I'll make the motion, we go ahead and authorize and sign all of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. And with that, we will stand adjourned.
After we all say Merry Christmas.
Yes. After we all say